Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Broadband Committee for Tuesday, November 15th, 2022. As a reminder, all meetings are live streamed and recorded. Any verbal or written information provided may be included in public documents as per the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, FOIP 40-1. There is an agenda before us. I'd be looking for a motion to adopt that agenda if there were no additions or deletions. Deputy Reeve?
I so move.
Okay, all those in favor? And that's carried, thank you. And then there are the minutes from the 20th of September meeting of the Broadband Committee meeting were circulated. Were there any noted errors or omissions to those minutes? If not, I'd look for a motion to adopt those minutes. Councillor Cermak, all those in favor? And that's carried, thank you very much. So I believe that brings us to item 4.1, and that's the Broadband Core Backbone Project Update Report. And I will look across the room to Mr. Hagan, please.
Thank you, Reeve Lloyd. Good morning, committee members. Fairly brief project update this time around. And essentially what we've included in there is a reflection of the name changes for the various phases as per the previous meeting, and as well an update on construction. For all intents and purposes, phases 1 and 6 are substantially complete now. Just some finishing up work there, but we don't expect those to extend into the new year. Phase 2, we had hoped to finish off this calendar year, but then the weather changed. So we've allowed for some carryover of tidying up and finishing up into the new year, into the first quarter. So you'll see that in the budget as well. And then, of course, the generator for the central office won't be delivered and installed until the first quarter of 2023. So that is in there as well as a carryover. And essentially, that's the substance of the report, unless there are any questions.
Councillor Deputy Reeve Milhoff, please.
Thank you so much. In doing some homework in preparation for today's meeting, I was looking on the federal government's website, and on their national broadband internet service availability map, it shows Nordegg as lit up. So it's my understanding that's not the case, based on our last update. Will that website saying that it's lit up impede other organizations or companies from wanting to come in and try to light them up? Because you originally had said, and at the last conference we went to with CAM as well, they had told us that the companies, when they want to go into an area, they look at the hexagon areas in which are being serviced, and they go, oh, we can absolutely get quick return in this area because it's not being serviced. Well, now that Nordegg shows it's being serviced, if it's not actually lit up, I don't want that map to show it and potentially avoid people wanting to come in and service it.
I can appreciate your concern with that. In challenge to that, our expressions of interest that we've posted are communicating to the telecommunications community that we have an open access network that is lit to Nordegg, and we're available for business. And so we're inviting them to come and talk to us about partnership opportunities and picking up the signal from there, or leasing dark fiber from us and providing that service. So while it may appear that we have serviced Nordegg, we have not yet. We have the connection lit to Nordegg, and we will be inviting those opportunities for telecommunications providers to come and provide the services from there. So I think they are well informed that there is opportunity in Nordegg, and we'll be looking forward to partnering with them and exploring those opportunities together.
Perfect, thank you.
And Councillor Swanson, please.
I have a couple questions in regards to the report. So on phase 2B, Sundry to Olds, so it says here that we have, construction through town and inspection, final inspection. Do we have a target date for hooking up to Data Hive that in 2023?
We're actually hoping that we might hook up before the end of this year.
Okay.
If not, I would expect it would be January, probably February at the latest. We're just doing one last little connection through Olds, and again, our subcontractor is confident that they can continue on with that construction despite the weather, but we'll have to see what comes of that. So we're optimistic that if it is in the new year, it'll be early in the new year.
Okay, subsequent. And my second question is in regards to the RFP for a network operator. It says that you're being, submissions are being reviewed. Can you give us a possible target start date for a new network operator, or is that still under investigation?
We're actually one step ahead of that, Councillor Swanson. We've entered into contract negotiations, and the contracts are going back and forth between lawyers right now. We hope to have that finalized before the end of this year, and so we could potentially have the operator in place before the end of December. If that drags on a little longer, I would expect in January the network operator would become active. Very welcome.
And Deputy Reeve Milhoff.
Thank you, Reeve. Just another follow-up in Nordeg. If it is lit, can our own buildings be connected?
I believe they either are or soon will be.
Oh, and then
That is in our plan.
like our public works facilities, et cetera, will then be utilizing our own network?
Yes,
Excellent, thank you.
you're welcome.
And Councillor Graham, please.
Thank you, Reeve Lougheed. For the residents in Nordeg, do we need a motion to enable them to have people to hook up to, or that's all in motion and just in due time they will be able to hook up?
In due course,
Okay,
yes.
Thank you.
We have to explore those opportunities
okay,
with internet service providers, telecommunications providers. And I understand and would anticipate that as we sign contracts and so forth and open up our access to them, they will clearly inform the residents of Nordeg that
All right.
there's opportunity available for them to sign up.
awesome, thank you.
And Councillor Cermak.
Yeah, Marie, can you explain to me, in phase 2B, sundry to all up to Councillor Swanson, what construction in the town of Olds and doing construction in the dirt and stuff in the winter time gets like 30 to 70% more expensive? So how big of an area is not connected yet?
It's a very small area. It was just one complicated area that they left, did all the rest, and then came back to this, so they're just finishing up that. So it's not a very big area at all. Thus their confidence and they can get this finished up. And as long as the weather doesn't turn very, very nasty, we're thinking they'll get it done before the end of the year here.
So there shouldn't be any impact to the budget on?
No, we're not anticipating that, no.
Okay. Thank you.
And Councillor Milhoff.
Thank you. Bighorn announced, I believe it was 2, maybe even 3 weeks ago, that they had received some ISED funding. Just in the efforts of not duplicating resources, are we in the process of communicating with them already, or do we need to reach out and so we can have communication with them?
We anticipate that we will be in communication with them.
Okay, it's just so new that it's still in the process. Perfect. Thank you.
Any additional questions relating to the report? Councillor Cermak, please.
Yeah. When this gets hooked up in Olds, then our whole system should be able to be lit.
Correct. We have a temporary connection right now through our own connections. And you're correct, once we finish that construction in Olds, that gives us the connection down to Calgary so that we don't have to build that whole route ourselves. And then what we have is what's called an agnostic connection through a provider that connects us to the internet, and we are independent at that point. If we decide we don't like that provider, we can switch providers in a heartbeat. So if the prices go up too high, we can shop the market and find better prices. So
Lots of options.
absolutely,
So
absolutely,
this will light it right up out to Nordic.
yes.
Perfect.
Yeah, so as I said, we have a temporary connection right now through our own network, and then that'll switch over to the full core backbone.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Additional questions on the update report? If not, I'd be looking for a motion to accept that report for information. Councillor Graham? Okay, thank you. Further discussion? Seeing none, I call the question. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. Brings us to 5.1, and that is the Broadband Core Backbone Project Draft 2023 Operating Budget. And again, Mr. Hagan.
Thank you, Reeve Lloyd. We felt it appropriate to bring both the operating draft budget as well as the draft capital budget to this committee, as opposed to the strategic planning meetings that will be coming up in December, to give this committee an opportunity to examine and discuss these draft budgets. And then we would recommend that, if comfortable, this committee recommend to council approval of these specific budgets. And then as well, in the budget deliberations that will occur in December, we don't intend on discussing either operating or capital related to broadband, as it will have already been examined by this committee. And we will look to the strategic planning committee to make a recommendation to council on the balance of the operating and capital budgets for the county. So in essence, we've separated broadband out so that this committee can deal with that specifically. So the first item here that you see in item 5.1 is looking at the operating budget for 2023. With these construction phases nearing completion, we're roughly estimating sometime in the spring of 2023 that we will have contracts in place and providing either dark fiber or services, lit services to telecom providers. And we expect revenue to start flowing in at that point. So we've recognized some revenue, hoping again that that will be annualized into 2024 and increasing numbers of service providers coming on board. And as well, we've looked at operating costs related to those operations, primarily based on the business plan that's been approved by this committee previously, but also looking at where we are aware of significant cost increases coming. We've bumped the budget up to be conservative there, and as well spotted a couple of areas that weren't included in the business plan that we expect to incur costs in. So again, trying to reflect the best of our knowledge in terms of our estimates of what those operating costs might look like. So attached to the agenda item is the draft budget. The other thing I didn't mention is that we've also allocated 75% of the dedicated broadband staffing to construction. So that'll show up in the capital budget, and we have 25% in the operating budget. Going forward from year to year, we expect that might start to shift a little bit as well, but that's our best estimate at this point. So what you'll see in the draft operating budget there for 2023, revenues estimated at $256,000 and expenditures at $1.2 million.
Any questions? Councillor or Deputy Reeve Melhoff.
Thank you, Reeve. The 1.2, is that also some of a carryover from 2022 as well due to unfinished work?
No, it shouldn't be, because this will be the operations budget.
Oh, okay, sorry, yes,
So you will see that when we get
In
to
the
the capital
capital.
budget.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Perfect, thank you.
Any additional questions? I would assume this, maybe just outline some of the things that would be included within that operational expenditures.
Absolutely.
Some of the bigger.
Absolutely. So out of that 1.2 million, what we're looking at is the allocation for labor and travel staff development of approximately $65,000 for the year. Contracted and general services $1.1 million. So this is going to be contracting a company to go out and do repairs and so forth if there's any damage to the lines. As well, that's going to represent part of the cost of the network service operator for dealing with the telecommunications companies directly on our behalf. And materials, goods and supplies, any additional equipment or fiber or anything like that that needs to be added in as we go along.
Thank you. Any questions at all? Councillor Swanson, please.
If there's no further discussion, I'll make the motion for discussion. That the Broadband Committee recommends the council approves the Broadband Core Backbone 2023 operating budget.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Melhoff.
Thank you. I know that the broadband business plan had not ever shown to have any type of full cost recovery on operations. However, is there any model that would show that that would be the case? That they could be completely cost recovery on operations? I know, not capital, but at least operating?
Absolutely, we could build a model that would show that. The caution that I would extend to the committee is that we've been as realistic as possible in terms of the cost side of it, the expenditure side of it, because we don't want the committee to face any surprises along the way. So, of course, as we do with all county operations, we'll continually look for cost savings and efficiencies to bring those costs down. That would help the bottom line, absolutely. The other option is in terms of the revenue, and within the business plan is our introductory revenue model put into place, and will depend on uptake. If we see very strong demand and very strong uptake, we could bring back some options for the committee to consider in terms of some price increases. I would caution against that at this point early on, because we don't want to dissuade that interest in joining our open access network as well. So going forward, those are options available, and we'll do our best to keep the committee informed as to what we're seeing happen in terms of our operations and in terms of our uptake and that sort of thing, and where those opportunities might exist.
Thank you.
Any additional questions around the motion on the floor at the moment? If not, I would call that question then. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. Item 5.2. And again, Mr. Hagan.
Thank you, Reeve Lougheed. So as I mentioned, we're bringing forward a draft capital budget for 2023, and that's an integral part of the 10-year capital plan. And just for clarification for the viewing audiences as well as for the committee members, there's two parts to this. Is the 10-year capital plan is administration looking forward over the next year plus another 9. The Municipal Government Act requires that we project out at least 5 years. We like to go a little farther than that, given that the further we go out, the fuzzier the projections get, because we just don't have all the information. But we still think it's a good exercise to go through to anticipate into the future. Given that the core backbone project is the only project approved at this time by Clearwater County Council, we're only projecting out to the completion of the core backbone in 2025. So essentially what we're recommending is that this committee, if comfortable with the draft budget or any amendments to it, recommend to council approval of this draft budget for 2023. The remaining years of 2024 and 25 are simply projections, so we're not asking or recommending approval of budgets for that at this time, because so many things can change before next year. So again, the focus is on 2023. There's no particular rationale behind administration recommending to move forward with phase 3, other than numerically it's the next phase in order. going forward, but I think the opportunity is here for the committee to discuss whether they would like to have another phase focused on in 2023, or potentially no phases focused on. That's entirely up to the committee. So what we've done is, in order to give the committee something to discuss and a basis for discussion, we have estimated the costs for the 2023 capital budget, assuming that we move forward with construction of phase 3 in the next year. And note that we've increased that construction estimate by 27% of its original estimated cost, essentially due to high inflation on specific materials and services. As the committee is aware, we've purchased the conduit and the fiber to do this phase as well as the others. We purchased that early on, so that turned out to be very beneficial for the county to do that. But there will be additional equipment that needs to be brought on board and other materials that go into the construction. And as noted earlier, we've included 75% of salary costs within this capital construction. So the idea behind that is that's where we estimate that our staff who are dedicated to broadband will be focusing their time, is on construction of the next phase, with 25% being allocated into the operating budget that we previously looked at. So essentially phase 3 is taking us out down Highway 11 to Leslieville, Condor, and to the Red Deer County border as well. So I am open for questions and discussion.
Go to Deputy Reeve Milhoff first.
Thank you, Reeve. When I'm doing the math on this, this looks like $65,000 a kilometer, unless I'm off on my math here. Is that pretty standard for this type of installation?
I can't answer that question. I would have to take that back and talk with Cam when he is back, and perhaps consult with our consultants as well, because I don't have that information available to me today.
Sounds good. I'm always concerned that because it's a municipal entity doing the work, that it ends up being conflated, the numbers, just because it's our name on it. And I don't want that to be a reason that we're paying significantly more when it's the public purse that we're doing this work with. So that seems like a very big number to me, but.
Yeah, and I can appreciate that, and if I can lend any assurance, it's that the fact that we recognize and are very sensitive to the use of the community purse as well. And even though we insist on industry standards for materials, our construction processes and so forth, because we want to make sure this asset lasts a long, long time for the residents so that they get their money's worth out of it. But at the same time, we follow all tendering processes to ensure that we're getting competitive prices on this. So our standards are extremely high, but at the same time, we search for the best price and the best product that we can get for our money. So.
Thank you.
Thank you, and I'd just say that I think that's where that tendering process really does create efficiency and value, and kind of assures us that we're getting as much of those things we want out of there without any additional cost. Councillor Graham.
Well, firstly, kudos to the past council and administration for buying things ahead of time and saving everyone a bunch of money. I don't have any questions. I just want to say that I do believe that the phase 3 is extremely important. We have 2 schools in that area, and I know I've been receiving emails from residents asking when phase 3 is going to be in, because they have kids that go to those schools, and when they come home they can't do their homework. So I do believe that phase 3 is important, and I believe we should move forward with it. That is all.
Thank you. Councillor Swanson, please.
I can well appreciate Councillor Graham's enthusiasm, and I agree too. My only big question is this twinning of Highway 11, and are we putting construction within construction? So, you know, we haven't, through our conversations with the government last week, you know, although productive and very informative, still no conclusions. And we need that concluded. So I'm even willing to bump it to phase 4 and go the back way around for next year, just until Highway 11 is decided upon by Alberta Transportation. But I believe we need to keep moving with the backbone. I just don't know if Route 3, Phase 3 or Phase 4 should come for 2023. So that was my only question in this regard. And I know Mr. Hagan has said, you know, it's up to council what, if we even decide to go ahead with the phase. But again, I'm thinking we go ahead, but might be Phase 4 before Phase 3.
Thank you for that. And I guess I'd just comment on the Highway 11 twinning. We know those timelines have been extended further and further back. I know, I'm sure our staff will be working in conjunction with Alberta Transportation if we were using a right-of-way, and I'm sure they would be very aware of some of the concerns. If we get it in the ground first, though, I think it's up to Alberta Transportation to work around us and at that point of time as well. But if we wait for a concrete decision from the province, that might be sometime in the distant future. I would have one question, and again, it goes back to what some of the comments I've heard before about purchasing the conduit and the fiber ahead of time. Somebody mentioned that those reels that the fiber and the conduit come on, sometimes there is an ongoing lease or deposit on those reels. Is that something we're incurring costs on? I just wanted to assure the public that.
My faithful assistant has advised that we are eligible to get a $500 refund on each of those reels that are the cores that we turn back. So as well, that reduces costs overall.
Okay.
So right now, we've got everything in our work in process essentially as an inventory. So as we apply it to the job, it'll just be the cost of the fiber or the conduit itself that gets added into the capital cost of that phase.
Okay, so a little bit like a bottle refund. It does, you pay for it at first and then you get it refunded when you return the reel.
Essentially,
That
yes.
makes good sense, and I can pass that along to the ratepayer that had concerns about empty reels
And if I
costing money.
if I can take the liberty adding to it as well, given, you know, our changing weather conditions and so forth, and looking into the future and recognizing it's gonna be 2 to 3 more years before we finish all these phases. We actually invested in some covers for this stuff so that we can make sure that we preserve them and not exposed to ultraviolet light any more than they need to and so forth. So we are also protecting the asset even before it's in the ground.
Thank you. I'm going to go to Councillor Northcott first, and then we'll come back to Councillor Cermak and then Deputy Reid.
Excellent. Thank you. In regards to Councillor Graham's comments, appreciate them. The way I see it right now, there's a couple 100 kilometers of backbone that's in the ground. There's still no residents tied in to a service being utilized. This is a lengthy process. So there's, for the amount of kilometers that are in the ground right now, there's nobody utilizing it, and I would like to see this to be installed and in service a lot quicker. I don't know if I'll be able to, I'd like to see some of that being utilized already. Have an internet service provider, and I don't know, those are, with the current economy and infrastructure that is needing to be upgraded and stuff like that, I don't know, for the investment, I don't know, I just wanted to make that comment. I think there's a lot of other places to invest money as well, and I'm just 200 kilometers backbone in and nobody tied in yet.
And I believe Councillor Cermak was next.
And just to further on there, I don't see anything in the budget here that we're going to in the first part of next year, or maybe the last part of this year, have it hooked up to all so that we have this lit all the way up to Nordig. I would like to see something in the budget saying that we're working on trying to get people hooked up on the backbone that is in service and can be used.
Mr. Hagan, please.
So with that, maybe I can provide some clarification that we haven't been given the direction to hook anybody directly to the backbone. What would be next is some distribution lines to various homes, businesses, communities, so forth. And what we're looking towards, based on council's direction, is partnership with those telecommunications companies for them to come connect to our backbone and then take those services, provide them to the residents and businesses. And that's what we're anticipating to happen midway through 2023. So based on the construction that we've done so far, we're anticipating that we'll start to see that uptake and those connections being offered either through further fiber connections to the homes and businesses or wireless as well in more remote areas.
Yes,
Supplemental?
So we have it that we are looking at the ISPs to do this final stage. And as soon as it's lit up, we will be negotiating with them.
Absolutely.
As soon as that hookup is done from homes.
Absolutely, and that's been the whole purpose of our expressions of interest process. We've done 2 already. We've had very good response to them. We'll be issuing another one in the new year, just for anybody that hasn't taken the opportunity to connect with us yet. And what we're anticipating based on that is sometime in 2020, we're going to be signing contracts, have our network operator in place, and expect those companies will start reaching out to the residents and the businesses and offering services.
Okay. I just hate to see that there's no money in this budget to make sure that we have money there, that we have people in place to start that negotiations and everything as soon as it's lit.
Absolutely, and that's reflected in the operating budget that we looked at previously.
Okay, so that is part of it, so.
Right, so this budget here, again, is focusing on getting the fiber into the ground and getting the equipment set up and so forth.
Yep.
And then the operations, we expect to start kicking in where we're actually out talking to people, signing contracts, working with the telecommunications companies to deliver that service to the end users.
So hopefully by this time next year, we should have some people using our internet, this office and other people that want to hook up.
Absolutely, I would anticipate it would be before this time next year.
I like that. Thank you.
Welcome.
And Deputy Reeve Melhoff.
Thank you, Reeve. My question's very similar. Again, I'm also concerned that the backbone does not equal service. So, and I understand that it's because we're waiting on ISPs to uptake into the backbone. But a lot of residents are counting on us to provide this service, and it's difficult for them to understand that we're not providing the service. We are merely the conduit for said service, or at least that's how I'm trying, like when you look at power distribution versus transmission, et cetera, that's how I'm trying to get my head around this. However, if we were to change philosophy and become the distributor as well, not just the transmission of said service, could we get people lit up in a timely manner? Because, I mean, this has been years now, years.
Conceivably, if the committee were to direct administration to perhaps hold off on further phase construction and turn our attention instead to distribution, conceivably, yes, we could get people hooked up either as quick or quicker. What our current objective really provides is that we can continue construction while working with internet service providers to also build the distribution lines and start connecting people as well. So it would be potentially a bit of a sacrifice of construction for connection, but without question, the cost would increase dramatically to the county.
But the revenue would as well.
Revenue would, but I don't expect it would keep up with the cost. And that disparity that you pointed out in terms of the operating budget, the risk there is that that disparity could get even wider, at least in the short term. What we understand from our consultants and industry experts is that the best, most profitable avenue for the county is in the wholesale side, not necessarily in the retail side.
Can
And
I ask a
that's where
follow-up?
we've focused.
Follow up, please.
But again, that does not mean service to the residents, and the whole point of doing this is to ensure the service to the residents. And we're relying on a separate third-party entity to provide that service, and they may or may not actually do that, to pick pockets that are beneficial to them and not necessarily what we want to see for our own residents. And that's my biggest concern, that yes, we're building these phases, and I have gotten behind this backbone project of yes, let's do this. I've gotten behind the internet project of people need the internet, and yet nobody's lit up. So and that's a big concern for me, that nobody is actually utilizing. We're not even utilizing it. So I mean, it's a tough one for me. Sorry. Thanks.
Councillor Swanson?
Well, I can well appreciate the fact that people are anxious to have the service. I do understand that past council struggled with the fact that we're not as nimble as a TELUS, a Shaw, a Bell, and we're doing our best to bring those opportunities to not only our residents, but also to our businesses. And unfortunately, baby steps for us is, or large steps for us is baby steps in a real telecom world. And the industry is changing, and I can appreciate how our consultants and our administration are trying to be on top of all the changes that are coming forth through the industry. So I understand people are maybe as frustrated, and I get it, and I'm hopeful that, as Mr. Hagan has pointed out, that our generator is hooked up and our NOC network operator is in place, and we can start to see those benefits early in 2023. If not baby steps, then see those incremental challenges and the incremental successes that we've been waiting for a long time to have. And this isn't an easy project to broach, and because we have other competing service levels that we have to fulfill or would like to fulfill and keep up those levels. So I think we're looking at the fact that I feel positive to the fact that we've gotten this far, and I feel we're going in the right direction. So having those hookups mid-2023, that would be fantastic.
Additional thoughts, questions? Councillor Cermak?
Well, hearing all of this, it sounds like to me that we should have a partner in this so that it can go ahead faster. A big tech company that has the expertise. Is that a possibility?
Mr. Hagan?
Well, I hope the committee can appreciate that I can't name names.
Yes,
Due to
for sure.
confidentiality and non-disclosure agreements. I can assure the committee that we have had very positive response to our request for expressions of interest for partnerships. I suggest it's going to be more than one partnership that we will see going forward. And as the year goes on, what we're hoping to do is to actually be able to share specific partnership opportunities with the committee and look for direction from the committee as to which ones they may or may not be interested in pursuing. I think those are on our doorstep right now. And so I think even better than just connecting with one large telecommunications provider, having all our eggs in one basket there, we're going to have several opportunities that we're going to be able to present to the committee going forward.
Fantastic. Sooner the better, because I don't think as a county, I don't think, not saying that you don't have the expertise, but we don't have the expertise that the big ones do have.
I don't disagree with you.
Okay.
And that's why I think it's prudent for us to be reaching out to the experts in the industry and working with us. My interpretation of past council's direction is because we are a municipality, not a telecom provider, this isn't our area of expertise.
Yep.
And precisely that's why they chose to focus on the core backbone construction. It's a large part of the investment that's required in order to deliver those services. It's been a stumbling block and a deterrent for private industry to provide those services on their own. So essentially, I see those decisions and direction from past council as being that of enabling and taking on those costs on the municipal level, getting that core backbone infrastructure and those connections down to an agnostic service and so forth, and being able to offer either lit services or dark fiber options to the telecommunications industry. Now those providers can look at their own business plans. They've got our price lists through our approved business plan, and they can make those business decisions where they want to invest, where it makes sense for them going forward. So I really see it as an enabling process to encourage them to come save that cost of building the network entirely on their own, now to take it from here and go from there. So I think I'm very optimistic going forward.
Okay, so you don't need direction from the council to move in that direction as soon as you can?
I think we've already received that direction, and we already
Okay.
are moving in that direction.
Perfect. Like to hear it, because I think we need that.
Absolutely, I agree with you.
As a county, I think we need to move away from doing it all. Thanks.
And Deputy Reeve Melhoff.
Thank you, Reeve. And as you stated, and I know we can't talk ISP specific without being an in-camera session. However, I, at this point, am not comfortable in building phase 3 backbone unless we know we have a partner that's actually gonna hook them up. We have built several other phases. So if we do have partners in those, we've now shown that we'll build it. We've proven that we would build it. So if these ISPs that are coming to the table are saying, you build it and we'll come, then I would be more comfortable in approving phase 3. But until we actually, I don't want to build anything anymore without knowing that somebody's going to come and connect. That makes it really difficult for me because they haven't come. The build it will come has not happened. So it's tough because on one end, I want to change my philosophy and say, well, let's just build the whole darn thing, get them hooked up, and we'll do it ourselves. And then we give all of the options to our residents, because we're still not giving all of our all the options to the residents, because whoever hooks up to the backbone, the resident's kind of stuck with that person, right? Or is that like, because whoever builds the 3 kilometers from the backbone to their home, they own that system, not the resident. Right?
Mr. Hagan.
They could own that connection, yes, but there's various models that they could employ.
But we haven't decided which model we're going with.
No, the committee has not had that opportunity to discuss that further. The focus has been on the core backbone. That's all that's been approved today. That's our entire direction today. There's opportunity for the committee to explore that going forward. And I would suggest that there are different options available. You could have a company put it in and lease it out to anybody that wants to be on there. You could have companies partnering together to go in. So it's not necessarily just one provider gets that distribution network, and people have no choice. As well, look at the areas where we're going to have wireless. Then that opens up opportunities there that nobody's tied to anybody specifically as well. So I think there will be opportunity, Deputy Reeve, in the future to explore those various options and what opportunities exist there, what limitations there might be as well. But we haven't been directed to date to go beyond the core backbone at this point.
Wouldn't the ISPs need that information when they're giving you a presentation of what they're going to do for us? Wouldn't they need to know what we want them to provide?
They know that we want them to provide internet service at a reasonable price and good quality, and thus that's why we've left that door and that field wide open without stipulating exactly what it needs to look like, because we want those experts to come to us and let us know what their ideas are and what they could do now that we built the core backbone, and take it from there. And those ideas will be what we bring back to this committee to explore further. So we don't want to limit those options.
Perfect, thank you.
Additional questions? Well, I'm certainly glad we're at the stage where we're asking those questions about next steps. I think we've been committed to that transport layer, that backbone, for some time, and we're looking forward to that directly benefiting our community in the very, very near future, as well as our business community of ISPs. Again, we'd be probably looking for a motion to, for the Broadband Committee to recommend that council approves the Broadband Core Backbone Project 10-year capital plan and 2023 capital budget. Would anybody be willing for that motion? Councillor Graham. Okay, thank you. Any further, Mr. Hagan, please.
Thank you, Reid Lougheed. So again, just to make sure that all committee members are crystal clear on what we're recommending is our draft budget is based on phase 3. Really appreciate the conversation that's occurred so far. If the committee recommends this to council, it will be a focus on phase 3 for next year. If the committee wants that to change, this is probably the time to talk that through and decide on it. And as well, we focused entirely on phase 3 in this discussion. I do want to point out the carryovers here that we talked about a little bit earlier. So phase 2, Rocky Caroline Olds, we've carried over 300,000. So this is not increasing that budget overall. It's simply that we anticipate that will be money not spent in 2022, and instead we'll see that spent in probably the first quarter of 2023. So we're suggesting extending that over. And then again, as the committee is aware, we won't see delivery and installation of the generator for the main point of presence here in Rocky Mountain House until the first quarter of 2023. So we've included $120,000 to reflect that.
Additional questions? Councillor Cermak, please.
Budget for 2023 for phase 3 and a complete 2 in the pot is just over 4 million. Is that right?
That's correct, $4,047,000.
I guess one more question I have. Is it necessary for the council to talk to ISPs or have a sit down with them so that we are on the same wavelength as the administration is? Because I don't know anything about internet, so it's a real learning curve for me, and I find it very interesting, and maybe I ask some pretty dumb questions, but I need the information, so just bear with me. Thank you.
No, can I respond to that? On the contrary, I think that's an excellent comment and an excellent question. To be honest with you, I believe the administration has enough direction from the committee and previous council in terms of having discussions with the internet service providers. And if what they're interested in is something that is within our price list, within the business plan, we're comfortable moving ahead through our network operating and signing contracts and starting that work. It's where they're coming to us with ideas that are outside of that business plan. For instance, if a telecommunications company was to come and say, we'd really like to help speed up your construction. Maybe we'll partner with you and share the costs on construction. That could be a possibility. That kind of thing, we're not comfortable proceeding. We don't think we have enough direction yet. That's what we bring back to the committee to discuss those ideas, see what the committee felt. Is it going in the direction that the committee and ultimately council wants to continue to move in? Could it offer an opportunity to change direction? So essentially, to address your point, where we're comfortable that we've got enough approvals in place that it's business as usual, we're proceeding ahead. But things that are out of the ordinary, we intend to bring back to this committee to discuss, inform this committee, and that's where we all get our education from.
And some of those discussions could be very beneficial to us.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Thanks.
Thank you, and I think there might be opportunities in the future as we deal with the ISPs and we step away from the transport layer project or the backbone project, there may be some opportunity to participate in cooperative means with extending that distribution network, you know, spending away from the trunk of the tree, so to speak, and closer into the branches. So, but that would be a question that would come before council or this committee at some point of time, so. Councillor Melhoff.
Thank you, Reeve. And understanding that we don't have crystal balls, and I get that. I'm still gonna ask the question anyway. If phase 3 is approved for the 2023 budget, what is your projected light up day or light up timeframe?
Our expectation is that we would have it constructed and lit before the end of 2023.
Excellent, full, like, still within the same year, awesome.
Yeah, and that's what we've demonstrated within the 10-year capital plan. Again, is the focus on phase 3 would be construction in 2023, again, depending on weather or other factors that might come into play, but given our best estimates at this point, we anticipate completing it in 2023. And again, moving on to phases 4 and 5 in 2024, 2025 respectively. So the entire core backbone would be complete by the end of 2025.
And I think I would comment as well, we've had several building construction years now. We've gained a lot of experience in putting lines in difficult, challenging weather conditions as well as terrain. So I think as we move eastward, sometimes that can be a few less challenges, maybe some different ones, but again, it builds our capacity to understand the path before us. So. Again, we have a motion on the floor. Would there be any further questions around that motion? Councillor Cermak.
So, thank you, Ray. We have all the material to do section 3, and it's all ready to go and stuff.
We have all the conduit and fiber to do phases 3, 4, and 5 at this point.
All pipeline agreements and crossings are all in order, and
that would come during the year with each phase, but we've been very successful with those. We don't anticipate any delays because of that. But essentially, we've got all the materials, and if this committee recommends this capital plan, including phase 3, and council ultimately approves that as our budget, that would be our intention, was to start negotiating those crossing agreements and so forth and get everything in place before construction season.
yeah, because that can be a real stumbling block, because I used to do lots of pipelines, and man, some of those companies can really move slowly when they want to, if they're just not happy with what's going on.
Yep.
In the previous past, they've had bad experiences. They certainly can drag their feet. So we have to get on that as soon as you can. You don't want to wait for the construction time to start doing it. You need it all set up before.
To share with the committee, we've had very good luck and success in negotiating those crossing agreements with industry. The only stumbling block we faced was with a local utility provider that slowed us down significantly and increased our costs by a considerable amount.
And I see another couple lights flashing. I'm going to go to Deputy Reeve Milhoff first, please.
Thank you. Does this bid have to go to RFP again, or is this part of the original, like, are we guaranteed of the same contract, or does it go to RFP?
So what we did is a previous RFP for a list of approved construction vendors. So we have a list of several vendors that met our specifications and requirements. And then what we would do is, if approved, we would extend an offer to those contractors on that list first. And if we were pleased with what we got back as proposals, we'd carry on and sign contracts. If we weren't, we'd go out again to the market and get further proposals.
Thank you.
And Councillor Northcott, please.
Thank you. I was just wondering if there's any idea of what a monthly subscription fee might look like for a user, and I know that that might be a really vague question, but would there be maybe a range of what a user might pay per month for the service? And the reason I asked that question, like with inflation and the economic times that we're in right now, food bank usage is dramatically increased, and some of the articles that I read and stuff, it's actually not even related to unemployment now. It's actually food bank usage. It's related to the high cost of living and inflation. So I'm just curious if this was to be, the investment continues to go into phase 3 with, you know, a little over $4 million. I would hate to see any more taxes on residents in the future. But I think a lot of people are they'll pick food and groceries and those amenities over I know that there's a lot of, I don't hear it very often, but there's internet usage, and I think a lot of it is it's recreational use, you know, for gaming, Netflix. I also do understand that there are rural businesses and stuff like that, which I do support. Actually, I support all businesses, really. But is there an idea of what a monthly subscription might be, just for a user?
Mr. Hagan.
Thank you, Ruth Lougheed. I can't answer that question because, again, the county is facilitating the connection, inviting the telecommunications companies to partner with us and provide those services. We're going to have to wait and see what they offer to their clients. We don't control those prices. Again, we want open access so that we can give residents and businesses as much option as possible and let the market decide what the prices are going to be.
Thank you, Mr. Hagan.
And Deputy Reeve Melhoff, please.
Thank you, Reeve. Understanding you probably can't answer it, but Nordegg being, it was under a grant, and a stipulation in that grant is that the cost stayed attainable. So therefore, wouldn't we not have the ability to ensure that it was within a range of attainability to our residents, because it was as part of the grant?
Mr. Hagan, please.
And again, I think the positive for the county is the basis of the open access network is that we're not bound to one service provider anywhere. If we were only to have one service provider come forward and offer to partner with us and their costs were exorbitant, then tying back to the grant, I think it'd be incumbent on us to try and throw that net wider, invite other providers to come and connect to the network and help drive those prices down somewhat. So I think the options are there that we can look to the market to dictate what ultimately these providers will be charging.
And I guess I would just comment at the time, by creating this transport layer, this backbone project, we set the baseline that all ISPs can use as their fundamentals, and that should still allow for competitive industry out there getting the best possible price to each end user, I believe. I think that sets, that's what is within our control at the moment by creating that transport layer, is having that baseline that's equal and fair to everybody that can access that base. Councillor Graham, please.
I guess I would just like to mention what I mentioned before. There are people in this area asking for this. They understand it's not gonna be for free. You know, they know there's gonna be a fee with it. So there've been many wonderful questions this morning. I've enjoyed listening to everyone's questions, and I completely understand the concern for that, but there are people looking for it and they know there's gonna be a fee. So well, that is a concern. There are people ready for it in phase 3. So I just want to reiterate that to everyone, and that's all.
Thank you. And I'd also like to express my appreciation for the community being patient over the last number of years as we work towards solutions. Trust me, we're working with solutions with other levels of government as well. We think there's good news in the future. There's promises from the other 2 levels of government that they will be partners in this now. So please stay tuned. We expect good things in the very near future, which will enable us to do more things better as we work together with partners of other two levels of government as well. Again, we do have a motion on the floor. Any additional questions to that motion? If not, I will call that question. All those in favor? And those opposed? I believe that is a tie, so that means the motion is defeated then. All right, well, that takes us to the end of our agenda for today. And look for a motion for adjournment. Mr. Hagan?
Forgive me if I'm out of turn, but I'm just wondering if the committee could offer administration any direction as to what information the committee would like to see next. And keeping in mind that the defeat of this motion gives no recommendation to council to complete the generator and nor to complete the connection through Olds. So I just want to make everybody aware of that. And any direction that you could give us would be appreciated.
First blinking light I see is Deputy Reeve Melhoff with a solution.
Thank you, Reeve. I think a good solution would be to redo a motion removing phase 3 until we have more information. We have nothing lit up yet, and I just have a really hard time with approving something where we have no base to go back on. And I fully support the internet project, except I do not have all of the information on this. And perhaps that's an in-camera conversation for a later date, because I have a lot of other questions that I want to ask that I cannot ask around this current table. But if we remove phase 3 and we can give capital approval or capital recommendation to approve the generator and approve to finish the project in Olds, because let's not leave a project completely unfinished, perhaps that can be a solution forward. And I'm not saying that phase 3 needs to be removed from the budget entirely. We need more information, or I need more information before I am willing to say let's give her.
Okay. Councillor Cermak.
Yeah, that's my feelings on it. I would love to see the Olds hookup done. I would still love to see the area phase 3 left in there, but not on this vote. We need to get some of this lit up and maybe see if there is some partners that'll go in on this with phase 3, phase 4, and phase 5. So that we're not taking on the blunt of this expense all the way by ourselves. So can we make a motion to just?
Yes, I think anybody could make a motion as to, for this committee to consider.
That we exclude phase 3 right at this time. Maybe at the next meeting we can put it in if we have some more information on it. And that phase 2 is completed and lit up.
Okay, did we capture that motion at all? Maybe if you would just restate your motion, Councillor Cermak.
I think at the time right now we need to set phase 3 back. Pause it until we get some lit up, Nordig is lit up, or anything along the line there. I'm just not willing to spend another $4 million on one phase and
Okay.
at this time.
I hear what you're saying. Perhaps Mr. Hagan has a comment.
Thank you, Reeve Lloyd, and perhaps I can provide a bit of advice. If the committee is interested in approving or recommending for approval a draft budget, that would include the completion of phase 2, the installation of the generator, and an appropriate portion of salaries related to those projects. That could form a motion that would allow us to continue with that. It would exclude phase 3. And as well, I wouldn't see 75% of the salaries going to capital now if we're not proceeding with phase 3 at this time. So I think we would have to rebalance that percentage, which will come back to operating budget itself. So while the committee's already made a motion and approved it to recommend to council the draft budget, we should probably mention here that that operating budget will need to be adjusted somewhat for the balance of the salaries. So I think Tracy Lynn's helping us.
Sure, that would be great. Maybe we'll take a 10-minute break here, please. Welcome back, everyone, after a short recess. We are working on a motion from Councillor Cermak, I believe, to adjust the draft. Mr. Hagan, please.
Thank you, Reeve Lougheed. Maybe I can assist a little bit. So with the defeat of the motion to recommend the draft capital budget to council, administration is in a little bit of limbo right now in terms of direction. So we would ask the committee for some direction. What I would suggest is if the committee's intention was just to remove phase 3 at this time, but still have us proceed with the completion of phase 2 and the purchase and installation of the generator, then I would suggest a separate motion be made to that effect, that administration present to budget and to council, an adjusted capital budget that reflects those items, and understanding that we will also have to adjust the allocation of salaries between operating and capital accordingly to reflect that removal at this time of phase 3. So it has to be a new motion that can't contradict the previous motion, but would direct us as to what this committee would like us to present to council.
Okay. Anybody willing to make such a motion? I see Councillor Melhoff, or Deputy Reeve Melhoff's light is on.
Oh, sure, sorry, I thought that Councillor Cermak was doing that. Sorry. That committee motions to adjust the draft capital 2023 budget to include 300,000 to complete phase 2, 120,000 to purchase and install a generator to the main point of presence, and appropriate allocation of salaries when presenting to council budget deliberations. Yes? Does that capture what we need it to?
I think it essentially does. Sorry, we need so many words. But I would just clarify that this won't be presented during budget deliberations. This would be presented at a budget meeting with our recommendation to approve the budget overall. So again, the intent was to have everything broadband discussed at this committee level, have this committee recommending to council. Our intention is not to bring anything broadband related to council to the budget deliberations in December. So I would just leave the word deliberations off, where you ended with recommendation to council or presentation to council would be appropriate.
Okay,
Because again, the council decision on the budget
sits with all of council.
sits with all of council, and that is following the deliberations. We don't ask council to approve during the deliberations. It needs to be done in a council meeting, and there is a council meeting scheduled for December following deliberations. That's where council will make a decision whether or not to approve.
So this will not come to us the week before our special council meeting at all?
No, it's this committee's opportunity to discuss this in detail because of the conflicts presented in us presenting this at deliberations with all of council there.
Okay, additional questions on the motion before us? I guess, would there be any opportunities in the near future to adjust the phased project plan, the 10-year plan, based on what we've discussed here today? Mr. Hagan.
Thank you, Reeve. I would suggest that's entirely up to the committee and up to new developments that we could bring forward to inform the committee.
Right. And I know in industry, and of course we're in the process of applying for grants to help us in this project from other levels of government. I'd like to remind council that I think we can anticipate that the efforts that we have spent lobbying the provincial government and federal government to support us on on this project and this endeavor as we go forward, I think will yield fruit. Unfortunately, if we decide to go a different route than transport layer, we have no basis to really even continue on with what we have applied for. So I just want to kind of remind that we have went down a path quite a ways, and it does have a logical end run that our community will be connected through means of ISPs in the very near future. But we sit at an unfortunate moment in that pathway right at this time. Anyway, additional questions on this motion? Okay, I will call the question. All those in favor? And those opposed? And that would be carried. All right, that takes us to item number 6, which is adjournment. Would it?
Questions still?
Oh, go ahead, please.
Thank you. Is there an opportunity for this committee then, because I would like to have a placeholder for this budget, the Phase 3 budget amount, so that we don't come back in January or February with a budget adjustment for the three, just under 4 million for Phase 3. Is there an opportunity for this committee to then motion pending approval so that there's a placeholder for it, so we don't need to do a budget adjustment, pending the information that Councillor Cermak had requested regarding the ISPs, and any other information that will be presented?
I appreciate your suggestion, Deputy Reeve, but I think in the interest of transparency to our ratepayers and in accordance with the Municipal Government Act, we have to be very clear that there is no provision for a placeholder within a budget. We will be recommending to Council approval of operating and capital budgets for 2023. And it's essentially approval or not approval. We wouldn't have a placeholder option there. So I think, again, in the interest of transparency, the most obvious and clear way to handle this is to have a subsequent budget adjustment once the committee's had further opportunity to discuss Phase 3.
Okay, can I ask a follow-up?
Please.
So then is there an opportunity for us to motion that more information regarding Phase 3 be brought back to this committee to give direction on Phase 3?
Absolutely.
Okay, I would make the motion, then that administration bring back the requested ISP meeting that Councillor Cermak requested regarding Phase 3 at a future committee meeting, so that council can make, or so this committee can make a more educated decision on Phase 3.
Okay, discussion on that motion. Seeing no discussion, Councillor Cermak, please.
I do have, thanks, Reeve. How soon can we have this meeting? And could it be in closed session so that we can freely talk about ISPs and maybe partnerships and stuff like that?
I'd suggest our earliest opportunity is the next council or committee meeting in January 17th, tentatively it's scheduled for. So we can bring the information that we have to date and share that with the committee.
Will that put you in a crunch if in January 17th that we approve it? Is that gonna put you in a crunch to get it ready to be able to go in the ground and do the Phase 3 if we approve it then?
I don't believe it would, and getting back to Deputy Meloff's question, it would require a motion by council to amend the budget to allow us to proceed. But I don't think it would necessarily hinder our timelines too much.
Okay, thanks.
Additional questions, discussion? Seeing none, I call that question then. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Item 6, adjournment. Councillor Swanson. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much for joining us today.